cold cases, mysterious disappearances, chilling unsolved crimes. For years, these cases haunted investigators, leaving families desperate for answers. But in 2024, shocking breakthroughs happened that finally brought closure. What was once thought to be unsolvable was cracked wide open. Tonight, we delve into the disturbing cold cases that were solved this year, each with a twist that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. The case of Jody Heisentrut, a vibrant news anchor from Iowa, was one of the most chilling. On the morning of June 27, 1995, Jody disappeared without a trace. She had been getting ready for work, leaving behind her car, keys, and a phone call to her station. No signs of struggle, just an eerie absence. For years, police had no solid leads. Then, in 2024, DNA testing revealed a match that led to a key suspect. And the mystery that had plagued the small town of Mason City for decades was finally solved. But the truth, it's even more disturbing than anyone could have guessed. Then, in 2024, a breakthrough came. DNA evidence linked a man named James Thomas to the case, a man with a violent criminal past. But what was even more chilling was the revelation of how he disposed of Jody's body. He hid her in a remote location, burying her in a shallow grave, and even placed debris and branches on top to make sure her body would remain hidden for years. His meticulous planning, his cold detachment, made Jody's case even more haunting. The idea that someone could vanish without a trace, only to be hidden away like this for so long, sent shockwaves through the community. Then there was the case that shocked the entire country, the Bear Brook murders. In 1985, 2 bodies were discovered in a barrel in Bear Brook State Park in New Hampshire. For years, the identities of the victims remained a mystery. 2 women and 2 children whose remains had been carefully concealed by the killer. The crime scene was cold, but the victim's body was hidden with such meticulous planning. The killer had driven out to a remote area, stuffed the barrel with the bodies of his victims, and sealed it, ensuring that no one would find it for years. Years later, with no leads and no suspects, the case seemed to be buried, just like the bodies. But in 2024, genetic genealogy revealed the unthinkable. Terry Rasmussen, a man with a violent past, had been the one responsible for these deaths. He had moved from state to state, evading justice with an alias, using different names to cover his tracks. What investigators hadn't realized was that Rasmussen had used his charm and deceit to create new identities, even posing as a father figure to the young victims. He killed them to silence them, and then, like a monster, he hid their bodies, locking them away in a barrel where they would remain undiscovered for over 3 decades. Rasmussen didn't just kill. He manipulated, he concealed, and he twisted the truth until it was almost impossible to see the real story. And just when the case seemed to stall, technology and DNA testing led authorities straight to him, unraveling the web of lies he had created. And then there's the infamous Golden State Killer case, where the true horror lies not just in the brutal crimes, but in how he managed to avoid detection for decades. Between 1976 and 1986, Joseph DeAngelo terrorized California, committing more than 50 rapes and 12 murders. He stalked his victims, often breaking into homes in the dead of night, silently moving through the dark until he was standing over his victims. He would tie them up, leaving them helpless before committing his unspeakable acts. His last known crime was in 1986, and then he vanished. No trace, no evidence, a shadow.